Hi, Peter.
Hi, Kavitha. How are
How
you?
are you?
I'm good, thanks.
I'm so sorry. Have I kept you waiting?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's good to see you and good to talk with you.
Great to see you too. And we've never talked one-to-one before, so I've never actually checked how do I pronounce your name. Could you tell me
It's
how?
Kavita, just as you
Kavitha.
said it. Yeah,
Kavitha.
yeah.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
So good to connect.
Likewise. Where are you right now?
I'm in Portugal, near Lisbon,
Oh,
in the
okay.
Sintra area, near Lisbon.
Okay. Oh, do you live there?
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
see. Are you from there?
No, my family is a bit of a mix. My mother's Brazilian, my father's Scottish, and
Oh,
I was born in England, but I have been connected with Portugal most of my life.
okay. I
Yeah.
see. Yeah. Great. That's awesome.
Have you been out here to Portugal?
No, I haven't. Never. But I hear it's the place to be.
There's a lot of people feeling the call to come here. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I have a few friends who have been there or have settled there. So, yeah, it's apparently the happening place.
Hmm. Just yesterday, I know you know Ramesh, and yesterday I reached out to him also because I've been wanting to interview him for a while, and he just happened to have been speaking with someone here in Lisbon yesterday. Um, he visited here with his partner. Was it 2 or 3 years ago? And
Uh-huh.
we went for a walk here in the forest. Um,
Oh, okay. So you met him.
yes, yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's great.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's so lovely to finally talk with you. What we had planned for Sand didn't come through, and it would have been a very nice event, but didn't happen.
yeah, yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah,
did you ever make it to Sand? Did you participate in any of the
no.
Sand events?
I only went to that one year,
Yeah,
and I gave a talk there, but after that, I kind of lost interest in that whole organization, to be honest.
yeah.
And also I've just been so busy with a bunch of other things. So have you been to Sant?
Not since then. I think I'm not sure what year that was that we were going to do that uh, panel a panel discussion together. But I think that may have been after my last participation. I participated for a few years
Okay,
in the European gathering. I went once also in the US
I see.
back in 2013, perhaps was the only
Okay,
time I went to the one in the US.
I
But
see.
I participated a few times in when I was in Holland and then also in Italy.
I
Uh,
see.
yeah, I
Okay.
enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very fun gathering and a lot of different thought and original thought. So it's beautiful that way.
Hmm.
Um, it's just between my medical conferences and everything here. It's just too much for me to uh, do. And so I, deliberately kind of withdrawn from a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah, doctors are famously very busy, and so
Yes,
it's amazing that you managed to bring together two lifestyles, or two. I mean, plus being a parent and then everything else, But
yeah,
um, the uh, the fact that you've written is it your fourth book that's coming out now?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, fourth, yeah.
amazing, beautiful. So I'm really just want to congratulate you on being able to get that done because I think it's actually quite an amazing thing to um, to go through that process, and sometimes maybe somebody really helps you through it and maybe even pushes you through the process. But I think it's really commendable to it's uh, it's something I'm impressed by, and I've had a good look at the three books that you have published already, and really enjoy what you've written. So I
Thank you.
really love your work.
Thank you.
Okay, so I actually was going to I had invited a friend to be with us in the interview, um, who is part of a project that I'm working with. and I'm just going to see if she is going to connect with us, or if
Okay.
it'll be just you and me.
Okay, sure.
She might be waiting to hear from me. Okay. So I'm not very experienced with interviewing, so I have some questions that I've been really wanting to ask you, and the more I actually thought about how to use this time with you, what to talk with you about, what to ask you, the more I realized there's just countless things that would be amazing
Yeah,
to talk with you about. So maybe this can be the first of a few interviews if this goes well.
sure.
For me, it would be a pleasure to for this to be the first of several. And
Thank you.
I would love to give you also opportunity to share with my audience what it is that your new book will be about. And but let's begin with just a little introduction. Would you say a little bit about yourself so that those who are listening who aren't familiar with you will get a little overview?
Sure. Um, well, I'm Kavitha, and uh, I I I'm a medical doctor. I'm a cardiologist, and as we were talking earlier, I'm a parent and a wife and mom to two daughters, and and an author. So I love writing and exploring. Yeah, exploring life and practice, spiritual practice, and its application through writing. And I'm the founder of Shabda Institute, which is the hub, so to speak, of practical application of Tantra and Vedanta and the other Eastern traditions. So it's not really a study per se, but it's really practice and application in moment to moment unfolding of life, so to speak. So that's really what I strive for is how do you apply these really timeless teachings um, in life, in the very, in the trenches, so to speak, on the front lines of whatever it is that our particular life circumstances are.
Beautiful. And I think that really comes across in your books, that
Thank you.
application in real life. Uh, and would you say a little bit about your new book and what's the inspiration behind it? And yeah.
Sure. My new book is called Fractals of Reality, Living the Sri Chakra. So it is about the Sri Chakra or the Sri Yantra, which is, as you know, it's like a ubiquitous symbol. Everybody has seen or knows at least a name, or at least they've seen it somewhere. And
Or have it
you can,
tattooed on themselves even.
yeah, have it tattooed or have a t-shirt, or you've seen it in a yoga studio, or you've seen it on some storefront, or you've seen it in some book or some blog as a logo or a symbol of whatever. Um, and the Sri Chakra actually, even though it is so ubiquitous, it is really very mysterious, as in very few people really understand what it is. And the tradition from which it comes and what is it actually symbolizing and what is its so what, it's okay, fine, it's perfect sacred geometry, so what, I mean, what is the significance of that in my life, right, other than having a tattoo that looks cool or a logo that's wonderful. There has to be some meaning to it. Why is it so relevant, and why is it relevant, or where is it relevant, or how is it relevant? So the subtext of this book is mystical symbol, practical wisdom. So it is a description of the Sri Chakra from the tradition that it comes, which is Sri Vidya, which is my tradition, and an unfolding of this understanding of how the Sri Chakra actually is manifesting in our lives, on a daily basis, and how we actually make the journey from anywhere in the Sri Chakra to anywhere, um, and particularly from the periphery of the Sri Chakra to the center, because that center is really the the um, the place, so to speak, the placeless place of absolute reality, and the one that is holding all of manifestation together. And so it is a spiritual journey from wherever we find ourselves in the scope of the Sri Chakra back to that center, the Bindu. And so it is, you know, I have to say that there are countless books and writings on the Sri Chakra. So this is not unique in that. By no means is it meant to be. Um, but I think what is unique about this is that, and there are two types of writings in general. One is the traditional writing on the Sri Chakra, which is about ritual. The puja, the tantric ritual, or the exposition of the Sri Chakra from the standpoint of sitting in front of it and doing something with it. And that has, it has many, many, many books and writings which are very specific to lineages and so on. And on the other end of the spectrum of the description of the Sri Chakra is what to say, a scientific, or uh, if you were to say, well, we are talking about it from the standpoint of modern science or quantum physics, there is that. But in between the two, there is really a scarcity of writings or an understanding of how it is applicable to people who are neither ritualists nor quantum physicists. People like me who are very ordinary people living in the world and just going through our lives. How does the Sri Chakra manifest in my life? So that's the attempt I've made in this book. Um, we'll have to see if it has it has fulfilled that goal.
Um, I'm curious how the process came about of, let's say, was it a calling? Was it a request from your teacher? How did the Sri Chakra speak to you and call to be brought into this book? Can you speak a bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. And I think in addition to that question, a more relevant question is like, who the heck am I to write about the Sri Chakra? About this powerful symbol that is so revered in so many traditions. Like, I'm nobody to write that. And um, well, this all came from my own practice because I'm a Sri Vidya initiate and it's my practice. I have worked with the Sri Chakra in ritual and in contemplative practices for many years. And and about 2 years ago, I did a course on it. I taught a course on the Sri Chakra, and it's called the same thing, Fractals of Reality. And this was really because I could see amongst my students there was like a total lack of understanding of what this even is. And so I did this course, and one of my students who took that course, for whom this has become a central practice, she transcribed the whole course and she sent it to me, and she said, maybe this could become a book someday. And you know how it is. I'm sure this is true for you too. Your understanding is continuously evolving as you practice with something, and the more you go into it and study it, and so on. So I put that away, and I finished my last book, which is Glorious Alchemy, Living the Lalita Sahasranama, which has, which is really a description of the Sri Chakra in prose or poetic form. And and then I spoke with my guru, and actually he called me one day because he heard that I had this idea about writing a book on the Sri Chakra. And this is of great significance because one of the greatest puja paddhatis of the Sri Chakra is written by my guru. So he is like the one of the world's authorities on the Sri Chakra. And he heard through the grapevine that I was thinking about writing this book, and he called me and he said, I hear you're thinking about this book. And I was embarrassed, and I sheepishly said, I don't know if I should be writing this. Like, who am I to write this? And and he was very emphatic, and I don't know if you've ever heard my guru talk, in one of his public talks. He has this deep, booming voice, and he is like magnificent. I mean, he has a presence that, occupies your entire space. And he said, you have to write this. And he said, don't worry about it. Not only me, but the entire Guru Mandala, the entire lineage is behind you. And you are perfectly suited to write this book. And that's it. Once and he's the one who also gave me that same kind of direction about the previous book, which was on the Lalita Sahasranama. And these are, Peter, if you know about this business of, sampradaya and lineage, it's very, very important because, people can get very, very uh, set in their ways that only such and such a person should be writing anything,
Mhm.
on something like the Lalita Sahasranama, because uh, I mean, to think about it, it was Bhaskararaya who wrote the original commentary, or one of the important commentaries on the Lalita Sahasranama. And then, there are Sri Vidya Upasakas all around the world who would question somebody like me, an ordinary person, and then a woman writing this book. And and so my guru, he breaks all those norms, and he's the one who told me to write Glorious Alchemy as well. And he said, don't even think about it. You should be the one doing it. I mean, look, who's to say who's the authority, right? And and for me, my guru is the authority. So he told me that, and I started writing the book, and I sent him the manuscript on Fractals of Reality. He read it, and he said he blessed it. He said, this is beautiful. And he said, this is the way the future generations will understand the Sri Chakra. And so even if nobody else reads it, the fact that I wrote it and my guru liked it is enough for me.
Mhm. Beautiful, beautiful. Um, I I think it's maybe implicit in what I've already said, but I really do see in the work that you've shared in your books a very clear transmission, and it's not what I see is not it's not just understanding, because people can study something, get an understanding of it, explain it, but there's a multidimensionality that I see. There is a level of the, let's say, the human understanding being expressed, and there's an energetic transmission, and there is something that um, I get the impression it's, as your guru said, it's the lineage's blessings coming through.
Yes.
There's a lot happening there.
Yeah, and I have to say it is entirely, my Guru Mandala. It is, I'm just a conduit for that. And every time I've written a book, any of my books, I've really not known. For instance, Shakti Rising, when I wrote that book, I had no idea how I knew anything. it just spilled out on paper, and I would go back later and read it and be really shocked on how did I even know this? And the same thing has happened, even with the recent books in Glorious Alchemy as well as in Fractals of Reality. It was like this, my teachers have been so heavily in my consciousness that I feel like they really drove the writing of these books. So um, I can believe that because it's their transmission coming through, through my work. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, Blossom. Kavitha, I wanted to introduce you to Blossom. I think she may be still connecting to video.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
I will connect to the video. I don't know how it's going to come up because I'm on my iPad. Oh yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Beautiful.
you as well.
I just don't know where to look. I don't know where the camera is. I'm on a new iPad.
Okay. So, do you have any questions for Kavitha?
Not just right off the top of my head. I just popped in here and I was listening and I just got the very last tail end of that. I just wanted to say hello and listen. And I thought maybe I might come up with a question along the way.
As you join us at this time, I'm going to just take advantage of the break, so to speak, to see if there's been any messages of anyone who wants to put any questions, because I put out the suggestion that if anyone wanted me to share any questions with you, Kavitha, that this would be possible today, and seeing if anything has come up. So lots of people happy that we're doing the interview, but I don't see any specific questions.
Okay.
So I'm curious about how you see the difference between how Tantra is understood in the West and how it is understood in India. I've seen, for example, in relation not just to Tantra, but actually in relation to the Indian traditions, in relation to yoga also, in relation to the relationship with the teacher, with the guru. Something I observed in India was that the nature of devotion as expressed in India, and I wonder if it's even been changing in the last few years, because I'm thinking back like 2 decades ago, what I was seeing in ashrams was a type of dedication, a type of devotion that I don't see in the West. I see a different kind of devotion in the West. I see people wanting to be devoted. I see people performing a kind of surrender and trying to be good devotees, but it feels very different. It feels very different what I see. It's as if there is a natural relationship to that devotion in India that I see. It seems more clumsy and more messy in the West. It seems like we trip over ourselves in trying to be devoted and trying to have a healthy relationship with the guru. And so I'm wondering how you see that, if you have insights and observations on that.
Yes, well, I'm Indian. I was born and raised in India, and then, and then moved to the US. So I I have seen both sides of it. Um, Fundamentally, I think it's a cultural thing, that in the Indian culture, um, for many centuries, we have really grown up with this idea about the individual just being a part of a greater whole. It's the individual is not as important as the greater whole, be it a family or be it a unit of some sort. And if you're talking about an ashram, the ashram, if you're talking about a particular mandala or of
Mm.
a community, then every part of that adds to it. So the part by itself is not as important as how it contributes to the whole. So like the idea of, for instance, of a family was or is still in some parts it, a much more the family is much more than the individual. And so making personal sacrifices for the sake of for the greater is kind of inbuilt in that culture. And things have changed a lot in India in the last few decades, particularly in the urban kinds of setups. And it's not that different than any other Western society, because India is becoming much more modern and more Western and more nuclear, more individualistic.
Mm.
And individualism is something that is a part of the West. Here, um, the idea of me is actually, it's very important. And not to say that the family is not important in the West. Of course it is. But that self-sacrificing kind of a mindset that is not just in India, by the way. It's in several cultures. For instance, some Hispanic countries, some countries in South America or Central America are also like that. Japan may be like that. So, but the West is different, as in, the industrialized, developed countries, where the individual is um, as important as the family. And the idea of self-effort is very much developed, that you are a self-made person. For instance, you can become successful if you work hard, or it's dependent on you, you know
Mhm.
whereas in those cultures, if you make it big, it was because of the contribution of the whole. Whatever you do, it's the contribution of the whole. So, and these are very broad generalizations, obviously, because even here there are, you know, plenty of people that put family first, like that, in that particular way. And so this is not to, say that one is better than the other. It's just a cultural difference. And in that context, and also because in our culture, in the Indian tradition, the idea of a guru has been inculcated from the beginning, from time immemorial, right? Immemorial. It's been a part of our fabric, because we kind of grew up saying, Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, Guru Devo Bhava, Atiti Devo Bhava. So, it's the parents are God, the guru is God, the guest is God. So treating, or at least even if we weren't actually doing that, it's there in the subconscious, right? And so the guru is placed in a very high position. So even not just the guru in the spiritual context, but teachers in general are really like in a very high place in that society in general. Whatever you're learning from somebody else, you put them in a higher place. And especially spiritual knowledge. Um, it's the influence of the Vedas, the Upanishads, which Upanishad means sitting near and under somebody and learning. So that has been the fabric of the Indian subconscious. So it's easier to approach somebody as a guru. And there's a difference between a guru and a teacher, huge difference. A teacher, you have a transactional relationship with. You show up, the guru teaches, you take that, you pay the fee, whatever you do, and you're done. With the guru, it's not the same relationship. With the guru, it's unconditional, right? The guru is giving no matter what you do. And whatever I do for my guru is simply not enough for what I get, right? I may like slit my wrists and give my life for my guru, but still it won't be enough because we place that vidya, that knowledge that we get from the guru, in such a high position that that is invaluable. There is no price for it. There is no price that we can pay materially or with our own breaths or with our own seva. So no seva I do is going to be enough for what I have gotten from my guru, right? And that comes, a little bit from this cultural conditioning, but also with this understanding of the magnitude of what you're getting from the guru, where that it's not really a transactional relationship at all, because a guru has no vested interest in you. They're not interested in who you are, where you come from, how much money you have, what you can do for them. They have like zero interest. Like, the true guru has zero interest in what you do for them. They're only interested in seeing you open. That's it.
Mm.
You open to the greater possibility of your existence. That's it. And the more you flow in that flow of the guru, and you see, my gosh, nobody else gives this unconditionally to me. Nobody else opens me to my own power and my own potential the way my guru does. Nobody, no spouse, no parent, no child can do that. It's only that guru. And the guru makes it possible for me to see everybody else as the guru. And so it is the guru that makes it possible for me to know God. So what can be possibly higher than the guru? Even God comes next to the guru, right? So that cultural conditioning plus the magnitude of what we get in this exchange, I think makes surrender easier. But the more we posture about surrender, the less it's likely to happen, because surrender is not a mind thing at all. You can't surrender by thinking about it. You surrender because you're in love, and you're in love with the vidya that's coming through the guru. You're in love with that knowledge, and there is no substitute for that.
Mm. Mm. Now I do have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, this last part you said, and then you are in love. When you say that, what came up in me is that you then are in a certain energy, and it's in this energy that the surrender comes. Would you say that it's something like that?
It's absolutely like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is exactly like that, because ultimately Tantra is the path of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all an energetic exchange. So even the seva that we do for the guru is for ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
think we are doing it for the guru, right? But it's never for them.
Yeah.
It is for us to open more to the grace, basically. And
Mm.
so nobody benefits from the seva. The guru may benefit or may not benefit, who knows? We certainly benefit from the seva that we do.
I might have missed a part because you say seva, and that is for me a new term. Could you explain to me what the seva is? Maybe I missed it in the beginning.
No problem. Seva means service. And
service.
Yeah, service. And specifically, it means selfless service, where you're not expecting anything in exchange. You're just doing it because you're in the flow of that energy, and you just want to submit to it. You want to surrender, and you just want to flow in that energy, and you'll do anything for that. So that is seva.
Yeah. So this is beautiful. So how would you translate that into our modern Western world? Because what you're saying is just delicious, and I feel it through my entire body. And that is what Peter was saying. And when you were speaking then about these two, almost there's a lot of space between the nuclear family in the West that we've known, I grew up with, and what you were talking about. And I feel that right now we're going to evolve into something that is a mixture of these. Could you talk a little bit about that and how this I would say generosity, this like selflessness, and this in loveness, like just speak about this some more, because this is really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one example, I think a striking example of seva, right, um, is parenting. You
Mm.
know, if you are parents, you'll do anything for your child, right? You'll go bend over backwards and you'll move mountains. You'll do anything for your child, um, with very little expectation of what they do for you, right? You'll just do
May,
that.
may I interject there?
Yes,
Because
of course.
in this path, I have two children, and my youngest is just turning 21. I just would like to um, talk about, like, when you are not, when you are in the place in parenting where you want to get something back and you want that, that is no. With the real seva is when in your parenting you're like, I'm gonna do that. I would do you just, in my own experience, the moment that I could release, that it was a huge, beautiful path parenting for me, learning so much.
Yes,
The ego
yes.
comes up and you're like, well, so unthankful and ungrateful. And as a parent, like, I learned that, wow, when you just let go of all of that,
Yeah,
and then who is the guru? The children are the guru.
yeah. Yeah, because they show us all the ways in which we expect things of the world, right? And
Exactly.
they show us our
Mm.
attachments, and
Mm.
and one of my favorite namas, actually two favorite namas in the Lalita Sahasranama, describing Devi, are Nirmama Mamata Hantri. So, she's devoid of self-interest. And self-interest is what really, defines parenting for most of us, right? Because we do something because this is my child. I would not do this for another child, but my child. This is an extension of me. So this breaking through that attachment, right, is progress in sadhana. It's not easy.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
can break attachments with even your significant other, your parents, but with your child it's very, very difficult to do that. And particularly for mothers, very, very hard, because you've given birth and whatever you have done, it's just there's a biological connection there as well. And to break through that it takes a lot of grace. But
Mm. Mm.
in that process, when we are able to do exactly what you said, where you do something, some sometimes you expect them to behave in certain ways, sometimes you do it just because there is no reason for it. And then it becomes true seva when you're just giving and giving. And there are plenty of examples of that. But that relationship with the guru is like that, where you are in that mode of seva. You deliberately make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller, you know, and more and more and more naked in that flow of seva. Because in that process of becoming small and naked and bearing everything and becoming very, very vulnerable with your guru, that vidya comes rushing in, because vidya can only flow from the higher to the lower place.
Mm.
And so if we don't, if we make ourselves equal to the guru, there is no flow, there's no
Mm.
gravity. And
Oh,
that gravity is, another name for another, guru is made up of, gu and ru, which is, the light that dispels darkness. But guru also means heaviness. And so guru is that gravity, that flow
yeah.
that is enabled by that gradient, that gravity. So yeah, this it's just very uh, tricky, because surrender cannot be taught. it's you have to arrive at it.
It's amazing hearing what you're saying, and it's you brought up something that I hadn't thought of in these terms before. Made a connection between when you were responding about the devotional impulse as expressed in India. You were saying how there's nothing that can be enough to compensate, to give back for what is received from the Guru. And I realized that perhaps that's one of the ways in which also the relationship is different as a tendency. Of course, I'm generalizing, but for Westerners, what is being listened to, what is being the receptivity, the expectation of what is actually being given, the discernment, the sensing of what is being given, I don't think it's always actually there. And I think
Yeah.
that's why perhaps the devotion is different. It's like there is a sense like I'm supposed to be devoted to this person because they're the guru, and I'm listening, I'm getting the teaching, but they're listening at a different level generally. It's the listening tends to be more intellectual. It's there to receive the understanding, the information, and it's not the reason that it's so difficult to create an authentic, sacred relationship with the guru for the Westerner, I think, is because there isn't a sacred relationship to the teaching. There's an intellectual relationship to the teaching. And so it doesn't fill the heart in that way you're describing that leads to that falling in love, that absolute inevitable surrender, that wholeheartedness. Yeah.
Yes. It's so beautiful. I love how you put that. That is gorgeous. And to be honest and to be fair, it's not that all Indians get that either. It's not.
Certainly
And
not the more
uh,
modern one.
yeah, and because human nature is human nature, wherever you are and wherever you're born, it's not unique. I think there is some cultural conditioning in some parts of the world, but there are plenty of Western students Western practitioners who really embody devotion and surrender to a degree that is exemplary for, people from the East, like look at Ramdas or Krishnadas. How do you explain that? That level of surrender to their guru, Neem Karoli Baba, is just magnificent. And well, I think what really stands in the way, is cynicism. It's cynicism that stands in the way of surrender. It's that lack of wonder, chamatkara, and it's very difficult to surrender if you don't have awe for life. If you have become jaded, which is like, I don't know if you've noticed, it seems to be the theme in the world today is the cynicism and lack of awe or wonder. And because you have to have that wonder to see um, what is being given to you, right? So, for instance, Neem Karoli, you can say, well, uh, Neem Karoli Baba was at a different level of guru, right? He was, performing miracles, and he was an avatar. But does a guru have to be that for me to surrender? Or is it that a lot of people who were around him didn't see what was happening, and only certain people saw it because they had that awe and wonder to see it in the first place? So I think it's both ways where, it's the cynicism, I think, is really killing our humanity. It is the reason that we see, for instance, a lot of burnout in medicine. It's because of cynicism. It's like you don't think goodness is there. It's like you look at everything with a jaded lens, and then where is the surrender to anything? And one thing I've noticed with people who are in that surrendered state is that they're always in that surrendered state. Not just with the guru. It's that's their stance. And life seems to favor them, when when they're in that, because they're in that surrendered state. Or even if when it doesn't favor them, they take it as a favor, like Ramdas, with a stroke, he thought was grace. Who can see that, right? It's that
Oh,
chamatkara,
only
right?
someone who's coming from a state of wonder and awe
Exactly.
can see it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because an ordinary person would have said, I've done this all my life and then I get a stroke. I mean, where is any grace in this? But that's not how he saw it, right? So that tells us that, it's lack of cynicism to a large extent.
Yeah, yeah. We could, I'm curious first to go even a little deeper on what does this mean, this jadedness, this cynicism? What do you see as the root cause of that?
I think a lot of it is it's driven by I think a lot of it is driven by social media. It's a lot of it is driven by, you know, the idea of 5 minutes of fame and um, entitlement. The idea of being entitled. And we see that more in some of the younger generations, where I should have everything. And somehow that never occurred to people of my generation, that I should, just because I am born, I'm entitled to things. And and this the quick fix mentality of, okay, I do this, I get this, and if I don't get this, then I'm not good enough. It's just like a continuous loop, of um, do something and be rewarded for it. Immediate reward, immediate gratification. And when you don't get that, that adds to that cynicism. And it adds to this idea that you're competing with everyone who is somehow, in some ways, getting ahead of you, and you are not getting there. So it's just a lot of this, the what do you say, the crowd mentality of everybody rushing towards some unknown peak that is illusory and doesn't exist, and need to get there right now. And the idea of instant gratification, I think that all adds to this issue of cynicism.
Blossom, I know you won't be able to stay much longer, and we're going to complete soon anyway. But if there's anything else you'd like to ask Kavitha before you go, and
Not necessarily. It was lovely hearing you speak, and there's a few nuggets that really stand out. Just thank you so much. Filled with gratitude to have been able to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you, Blossom.
You mentioned grace a moment ago, and it's one of the themes that I had wanted to also bring up. It's a core theme for me. The mystery, let's say, of how to experience, achieve, reach something that is desired, and yet not to be pushing for it. To in the very act of letting go, of trusting, of allowing, to experience what was already available. I sometimes point out to people how there's this convergence of different meanings. That the word grace in English is used to describe beauty, to describe fluidity, to describe, often perhaps in a sort of a bit of a mysterious and kind of a dry way, this idea that, at least coming from the Catholicism, that God, you have to invoke God's grace, and there is this power that God will give, but I never received that teaching about grace coming from religion in a way in my childhood that was inspiring. This grace didn't have a softness, a beauty to it. It was a strange thing that if God was in a good mood, then it might give grace, or if you behave well, there was this uncomfortable thing around grace, and it took some deconditioning to rediscover what is grace. I'd love for you to say a little more of what this means to you, and perhaps, if you like, some way in which you've seen grace unfold in your life, some moment where you've felt a particularly powerful touch of grace, let's say. Yeah, I'd love to perhaps end with that as my last question.
Sure. So the Sanskrit word actually for grace is anugraha, and in the tantric tradition, in the classical tantric tradition, we say that there are 5 fundamental powers of the divine, and that is creation, um, sustaining what is created, dissolving what needs to be dissolved, and so those 3 primary powers. And then there is the power of concealment, which is known as tirodhana, and the power of revelation, which is anugraha. And it comes from this understanding that actually life as we see it is perfect. It is unfolding in absolutely perfect ways where there is uh, no flaw in it. And what creates the idea of a flaw in life as is, the isness of life is concealment, tirodhana, because it comes from also a, a fundamental feeling of being limited ourselves, being limited beings with, um, with limited to our stories, limited to, uh, you know, that which happens between our first breath and our last breath. So we remain at the tip of the iceberg. Only the tip of the iceberg is being, is visible to us, is perceptible to us. The major part of reality remains hidden under, like just like the iceberg. We are only seeing the tip. That hiddenness is tirodhana. And grace is when, for whatever reason, the veil parts, whether it's temporary parting of that veil or a permanent parting of that veil, which is known as enlightenment, where we see the perfection of life as is, the isness of life, but that comes from also seeing ourselves as being perfect and whole and not broken. Because our story is broken, it's always going to be broken. But who I am is whole and perfect, Purnam, always, eternal. And even having a glimpse of that is grace. But our tradition doesn't stop there. It says anugraha is always there. In fact, anugraha is the only thing that is functioning, obviously. It's just that we need to open to it, and that our reluctance to open to it is the concealment. So it's happening simultaneously. And so the opening, even theoretically, even intellectually, or instinctively, or through a gut feeling, or intuitively, all of that is anugraha. So as I said, there are innumerable instances of grace in our day-to-day lives if we only pay attention to it. So we may remember some events and say, well, this was all grace, but that's only because at that moment we were completely open. And if we keep opening, we would see that life is a stream of anugraha, that nothing is actually ever out of place. Even the pain and the suffering that we may have gone through, that has brought us here. And why that has been an absolute gift of grace. So in my life, there have been many instances of experiencing such grace, but a very cliched one is when I gave birth to my kids and holding my kids, for the first time was unlike anything I had experienced. But it's also in many other non-cliched situations. Being in the mountains makes me feel that way, where there is nothing more real than that. Being in, being in ritual of certain types makes me feel that way. A lot of times, like right now, talking with you, and I can feel like we are on the same wavelength. And there is this openness. There's no, this openness between us where there is a free flow, even if there is not continuous chattering about it. And that's anugraha, that's grace. So it's just wherever we are open, grace is always there. And so it's not, as they say, you just have to open our eyes to it. And opening our eyes is the spiritual path. Really opening to grace that is always there is the entirety of the spiritual path. We can't we are not producing something new. We are not creating anything new. We are not creating any new circumstances. One of my teachers used to say, it's a journey from here to here. So I think that's the journey. That basically sums it up.
Thank you so much, Kavitha.
Thank you, Peter.
Such a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you for
Likewise.
making the time for this. I want to also extend an invitation to participate in an upcoming summit that will be. I'll check the dates and send you the information, and we can talk about it in more detail. Sure. But I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be sending this invitation.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to.
And perhaps just a last quick question. When is your book being published? When is it available?
It's scheduled to come out by end of March or April. So within the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, Kavitha, I want to honor your time and thank you deeply. Real pleasure and an honor to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you, Peter. Likewise, I'm so happy that we talked today and talked after a long time of communicating, and it's such an honor to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Likewise.
Bye.
Bye. Big hug to you.